Yesterday we talked about a father and a husband was dragged off to El Salvador, thrown in prison with the worst of the worst, and it seems to be consensus that the man is neither a gang member nor a criminal, and he was also court ordered to not be sent back to El Salvador. They tried to turn the planes around that were taking these prisoners to this prison. So we think that's one wrong guy already, right? Wait, there's more. You got the wrong guy. The Doge, Elon Musk says, Donald, we found a law from, the alien enemies law from 1760, whatever the fuck. And we could use that. And the Don says, we can do it. It'll be huge. We'll send them all to El Salvador. No problem. $6 million. Right? And then they start pushing buttons. They done thrown the baby out with the bathwater. And they done washed up innocent people. And now those innocent people are in a prison that they don't have. And I said this yesterday. They're not going to want to admit to fucking up and sending the wrong people. So they're not going to go get them. And it seems to be the stance they're taking because they're sitting around saying, well, they don't have to give them back to us. You should demand them. You sent them. You the one that fucked up.
Now you see now, you done fucked up, you know that though.
But they can't do that in front of y'all. They can't do that in front of y'all. Make them look stupid. They don't want to look stupid. They want you to have their back. They want to look like they got a 100% rating and they don't fuck up. The makeup artist Donald Trump deported under the Alien Enemies Act. President has invoked the law to send Venezuelans to prison in El Salvador without due process and in many cases under false pretenses. Throughout the fall and winter, Alexis Romero de Hernández struggled to accept a grim new routine. She lived in a small town in central Venezuela called Capacho with her husband and the younger of her two sons. Her eldest, a 31-year-old makeup artist named Andrys Jose Hernández Romero, was being held in an immigration jail in San Diego. He called her every few days, usually late in the afternoon, to reassure her that he was safe. The calls would last about a minute. Alexis had to put money on his calling card to keep them coming. Mama, relax, Andrys would tell her. I'm fine. They treating us well. What's bad is that we're stuck here. In Capacho, Andrys was a member of a local theater troupe, and he acted in an annual church procession during the Epiphany, which in the Spanish-speaking world is known as El Día de los Reyes Magos, or Three Kings Day. He loved to draw and had a penchant for bringing aesthetic flourishes to every corner of his life. When he worked as a hotel receptionist for a time, he created balloon decorations in the lobby. At home, he designed costumes and clothes. He made friends easily, but, Alexis said, didn't drink or stay out late. Andrys is a very, very humble and very open, she told me by phone, and very open. Is very, very humble and very, very open, she told me by phone. He's comfortable being alone. He cooks for me and helps clean. He's a homebody. In 2023, Andrys took a job at a state-run television station in Caracas, the country's capital. It was an ideal job. He was responsible for prepping the show's anchors and guests for the screen. And his family, who have a shop that sells glass for mirrors and tables, needed the money. But he was gay and skeptical of the country's authoritarian regime, which made him a target for abuse. The year he spent in Caracas, Alexis told me, was one of persecution and discrimination. People in high places always discriminate against those who are lower down. They humiliated him. At night, after work, he was often followed home and harassed by armed vigilantes aligned with the government. On one occasion, his boss at the station slapped him in front of his co-workers. When Andrys told his parents that he decided to leave Venezuela in late May of 2024, they begged him to stay. At least see how things go with the elections, Alexis told him, referring to the country's presidential race that August. Alexis told him, referring to the country's presidential race that August. His father talked to him too, but there was no way to convince him not to go. Andrys' decision initially seemed prescient. The current president, Nicolas Maduro, who appeared to have lost the vote by an overwhelming margin, declared himself the winner. Andrys was one of roughly 760,000 Venezuelans who traveled to the United States during the Biden administration, traversing an infamously dangerous jungle known as the Darien Gap between Colombia and Panama. He made the journey, Alexis said. He wanted to change his life, to reach his potential, and to help us here. The first time Andrys tried to enter the U.S., he was arrested and sent to Tabasco, Mexico, where a friend helped him download a government app that allowed migrants to make appointments at points of entry. The system known as CBP-1 was the Biden administration's attempt to create a more orderly process for people to enter the country. Crazy. Part of the premise was to incentivize migrants to come the right way, though it often took months for slots to open up. On the morning of August 29th, the U.S. official interviewed Andrys at the U.S.-Mexican border in San Diego. Andrys had no criminal record and the exchange seemed straightforward. "Did you claim asylum while in Mexico?" the official asked. He said, "I didn't know I could do that," he replied. Andrys eventually passed his preliminary asylum screening. Officials determined that he demonstrated a credible fear of persecution in his home country, but during a physical exam, they had fixated on his tattoos. A snake extending from a bouquet of flowers covers his left arm, forearm, and bicep. On each of his wrists is a crown with the words "Mom" and "Dad" inked next to them in English. The photographs in his file show a thin man, slight of build, with a youthful face and dark hair. There are rings under his eyes, and he is standing before the government photographer without a shirt. Andrys denied belonging to any gang. The agent who asked him about the tattoos described his demeanor during interview as uncooperative. A note was added to his file. Upon conducting a review of detainee Hernández's tattoos, it was found that detainee Hernández has a crown on each one of his wrists. The crown has been found to be an identifier for a Tren de Aragua gang member. These crowns, according to the government, were determining factors to conclude reasonable suspicion. But from my understanding, he got two different crowns. He got a 5-point crown on one hand and an imperial crown on the other one. Like, it sounds like they're reaching. Often, asylum seekers who pass their initial screenings are released with the future court date, but Andrys remained in custody, apparently because of government suspicion about his tattoos. In December, 3 months into his detention, he met Paulina Reyes. Paulina Reyes, a lawyer from the Immigrant Defenders Law Center, a legal advocacy organization who agreed to represent him on a pro bono basis. Reyes filed an asylum application on Andrys' behalf. They spoke regularly both in person and on the phone, while waiting for a court appearance scheduled for March 13th. About a week before the hearing, Andrys and a number of other Venezuelans in San Diego were transferred to a facility in South Texas. Reyes, whose Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE had neglected to inform, found this out when Andrys called her from Texas. That was the last time the two of them. Andrys called her from Texas. That was the last time the two of them spoke. During his March 13th hearing in San Diego, Reyes thought he might appear on video. When he did not, the proceedings were postponed until March 17th. Reyes wasn't able to speak with him, so she didn't realize that on Friday, March 14th, he managed to make one last phone call to his mother. He told her he was fine, but that the government was about to transfer him again. He had no information about his destination. He told her he was fine, but that the government was about to transfer him again. He had no information about his destination. When Andrys failed to appear at his second hearing, the immigration judge wanted to know why the government wasn't making him available. He was removed to El Salvador, the ICE lawyer replied. We just found out today. This surprised the judge, who was there to determine whether or not Andrys should be deported. How can he be removed to El Salvador, the judge asked, if there's no removal order? On March 14th, Donald Trump decided to do whatever the fuck he wanted to do. It's the bottom line. Freedom, rules, checks and balances. No. We got loopholes. We're going to do what we want to do, me and my homeboy Elon. Don't worry about it. Just like Biden did what he wanted to do and gave them apps and shit to cross the border with. On March 14th, Trompito has signed a proclamation declaring that his administration will begin using vastly expanded presidential powers under the Alien Enemies Act, a law from 1798, right, that had previously, so tattoos and all this shit, they weren't thinking about no fucking tattoos in 1798. I mean, I know they existed, but I'm saying they weren't thinking of Tren de Aragua in 1798. Law from 1798 that had previously been invoked just 3 times, supplying the rationale for the U.S. government to target British nationals during the War of 1812, to intern Germans during the First World War, and to intern Japanese, German, and Italian immigrants during the Second. Okay, that happened here in this country, real talk. The law allows the president to detain and deport immigrants living lawfully in the U.S. if they are from countries considered enemies of the government. In this case, Trump claimed that the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, operating in conjunction with elements of the Maduro government, had infiltrated the United States and was conducting irregular warfare. The White House didn't make the proclamation public for another day. In the meantime, the government was secretly putting Venezuelans who were in federal custody on planes, readying them for deportation. Andrys was one of them. There were 237 others who, like him, were accused of belonging to the gang. The vast majority were involved in pending immigration cases, but were not given an opportunity to contest the alleged evidence against them. No due process. A high-ranking ICE official later acknowledged that many of these men had no criminal records in the U.S. If they had no criminal records in the U.S., then they should have just been deported. They shouldn't have been put in no super prison. I don't understand what's happening here, man. At what point does anybody just get to go for that ride? Huh? At what point am I speaking fucking Spanish in Target and I got to go for that ride now? Because I spoke Spanish in front of Jimmy Bob in the fucking Target. A high-ranking ICE official later acknowledged that many of these men had no criminal records in the U.S., but insisted that the absence of such a history actually highlights the risk they pose. El Salvador is a conspicuously punitive destination. The country's president, Nayib Bukele, has suspended parts of the country's constitution. I mean, that's what's happening here. And during the past 3 years, jailed more than 80,000 alleged gang members without clear charges. In February, there's got to be mistakes in there. You're never going to bat 1,000. This is bullshit. A lot of mistakes in there. And we already see how many popping up already. That's why I don't buy the bullshit, the numbers. 1,000 for 50,000. Miss me with that bullshit. In February, after meeting in San Salvador with Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, Bukele offered to house immigrants who'd been arrested on American soil in his newly built prison, which is called the Terrorism Confinement Center. We have offered the United States of America the opportunity to outsource part of its prison system. Bukele wrote on X. The fee would be relatively low for the U.S., but significant for us, making our entire prison system sustainable. On the day that Trump signed the order, Lee Jalert, a veteran litigator with the American Civil Liberties Union who specializes in immigrants' rights, was in a courtroom in Washington, D.C., arguing a case about another controversial decision recently made by the administration. In February, the president has sent 178 Venezuelan men from U.S. detention to the military compound at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. After the ACLU brought a legal challenge, the Department of Homeland Security deported the men to Venezuela, evidently to avoid a court fight over their access to legal representation. So just subverting the Constitution and subverting America by going through Guantanamo Bay and El Salvador, it's all a circle jerk. But the government said that it planned to send more migrants to Guantanamo. Jalert was trying to ensure that they had access to lawyers. In the hours before the hearing, he'd also been monitoring early news reports that the president was preparing to invoke the Alien Enemies Act to deport more Venezuelan migrants. As soon as the hearing ended, Jalert rushed back to his hotel where he worked through the night with his ACLU colleagues to prepare an emergency lawsuit. The idea was to prevent the government from deporting anyone under the Alien Enemies Act while the case could be argued in court. If people already had final orders of removal, the government doesn't need the Alien Enemies Act, Gelert told me. Using the Alien Enemies Act is all about short-circuiting the immigration process, not only to eliminate hearings in immigration court, but to be able to send them wherever the government wants. Through a national network of immigration attorneys, the team identified 5 plaintiffs who fit the profile of those at the greatest risk of being summarily deported to El Salvador. They were Venezuelan men in federal custody who had open immigration cases and had recently been transferred to a detention facility in Texas. The lawyers took down affidavits from the plaintiffs' immigration attorneys. The men themselves were unreachable and crafted an argument to protect a wider class of migrants in custody. The ACLU filed its brief sometime after 2 in the morning on March 15th, a Saturday. Within hours, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. had issued a temporary restraining order to block the deportation of the 5 plaintiffs who, it turned out, had already been taken to the airport. 4 of them had to be pulled off the plane on the tarmac, off the planes on the tarmac. The other passengers were left to wait on the aircraft for several hours more. The judge, James Boasberg, a former prosecutor who'd been appointed to his current position by Barack Obama and to a prior judgeship by George W. Bush, scheduled a hearing on Zoom for 5 o'clock that afternoon. About an hour before it was set to begin, the White House announced its invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. At the hearing, Boasberg asked the government lawyer, "Are imminent deportations and removals under this proclamation planned?" According to a transcript of the proceedings, the lawyer responded, "Your Honor, I don't know the answer to that question." Boasberg turned to Gelert, who said, "I recognize it's Saturday, but on the other hand, the government appears to be moving planes very rapidly to El Salvador with hundreds of people. So we hope that in the next 5 minutes, counsel for the government can get an answer to that." Boasberg gave the government 40 minutes. During that time, according to an analysis by the Washington Post, 2 planes full of migrants left Texas for Honduras. Either the government lawyer was unaware of these departures or he feigned ignorance because when Boasberg reconvened the hearing at 6 o'clock, the attorney still couldn't provide any information. "I'm still trying to get additional details. Planes was in the air and on their way." AKA, the United States government played itself, literally. Right? President versus judges. The systems we have in play that were supposed to be in play to protect us from tyranny, they don't even exist no more, son. At 6:45, Boasberg issued a ruling to extend his temporary restraining order to anyone in federal custody, which meant that, until further notice, the Trump administration could deport people under federal immigration law, but not under the Alien Enemies Act, particularly giving the plaintiffs important information unrebutted by the government that flights are actively departing and plan to depart. "I do not believe that I am able to wait any longer," Boasberg said. He instructed the government's lawyer that any plane containing these folks that is going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned to the United States. They returned them, minus the prisoners. They dropped them off in El Salvador real quick. He added, "However that's accomplished, I leave to you. But this is something that you need to make sure is complied with immediately." Nah, they told you to go get your fucking shine box.
Go home and get your fucking shine box.
Trompito told you to go get your fucking shine box. We talked about it. We was here. The judge's verbal order was entered into the written record at 7:26 p.m. Shortly after that, the 2 planes that had left Texas during the adjournment arrived in Honduras, and a third took off from Texas. Within a few hours, each of those planes departed Honduras for El Salvador, one at 11:39 p.m., another at 11:43 p.m., and the last at 12:39 a.m. Just before 8 o'clock on the morning of March 16th, Bukiak posted a New York Post article about Boasberg's order, adding in a comment, "Oopsie, too late." Wow, it's basically fuck you. Go get your fucking
go home and get your fucking shine box.
Not only is Trompito shitting on this judge, but you know the president or the dictator of El Salvador got him too. Rubio retweeted. Look at that. Rubio's such a cuck too. Rubio retweeted Bukiak's sarcastic post. These guys are a bunch of dorks with power. That's all it is. Bunch of lame with a bunch of power. Bukiak soon began releasing footage of Salvadoran soldiers swarming the migrants as they got off the planes. Videos showed the men looking stunned as their heads were shaved and they were frog marched into prison. Right? Several hours later, Nelson, a 35-year-old from Venezuela, who works as a truck driver in North Carolina, spotted his younger brother Arturo in a photograph of the detained men in prison whites and crouching in rows with their heads bowed. Nelson's last name has been withheld for his protection. He couldn't see Arturo's face, but he didn't have to. Nelson spotted a hummingbird tattoo on his neck. Beyond that, he told me, we don't have any signs that my brother's even still alive. Beyond that, he told me, we don't have any signs that my brother's even still alive. Arturo's case was first reported by Mother Jones, but Nelson and I met through another Venezuelan in the U.S. whose cousin had been deported. She was too scared to talk to a journalist. We can't give an interview because his life is at risk in Venezuela and we're in danger here, she texted. Este señor Trump is even threatening the lawyers who defend immigrants. Arturo is a singer who worked landscaping jobs in the U.S. He left Venezuela in 2016, living in Colombia and then Chile with his wife, who 3 months ago gave birth to their daughter. As part of his application for temporary protected status in the United States, which would have theoretically shielded him from deportation and granted him work authorization, he was supposed to have an appointment with DHS on Friday, February 12th to get fingerprinted. But on February 8th, he was arrested at a house where he was shooting a music video. And Nelson's telling, ICE officers turned up looking for someone else, but took Arturo into custody as a collateral interest. Listen, these ICE motherfuckers are terrorists. The family didn't have the money to retain a lawyer, and Nelson was told he couldn't raise bond. Still, Nelson managed to secure documentation from each of the countries where his brother had lived, demonstrating that he didn't have a criminal history. When I asked Nelson whether he thought Arturo's tattoos were the reason for his deportation to El Salvador, he told me, I imagine it has to be. He hasn't even gotten a speeding ticket in the U.S., which is how they normally get Latinos. I just don't even understand how there's evidence to categorize him as a criminal. And this is what I was telling Upper Echelon, and this is my fucking problem. That you hear, oh, they're deporting people, and you're like, good, yeah, all right, got him. But you don't know how they got there. And you don't know if they were just picked up off the street. You'd love to assume so that it doesn't sound like your political god is a monster or politics is a monster. That's crazy. Just scooping. Oh, we didn't get him, but we'll take you for them tattoos. Don't worry about it. Other family members learned of the relative's deportation the same way that Nelson had, from the footage released by Bukiak. As the Washington Post reported, Mervin Yamarte, a 29-year-old father from Maracaibo, who had worked as a roofer in Venezuela, had called his mother in mid-March, saying he would see her soon after being arrested. He and three of his friends from home, who were living together in Dallas, had agreed to sign deportation orders, expecting to be returned to Venezuela. When his mother recognized him in a video posted by Bukiak, she told the Post, I couldn't speak. The father of Carlos Daniel Terran, an 18-year-old Venezuelan who was first arrested in January, shared with NPR a series of text messages he had exchanged with his son on the eve of Carlos's deportation. With God's help, we are leaving today. Carlos had said, with God's help, we are leaving today, Carlos had said, assuming that he was being deported home. God bless you, son, his father replied. A few days later, someone sent him a photo of his son in the Salvadoran prison. Other relatives panicked when they hadn't heard from the men but could not find them in the U.S. government's searchable database of people in immigration detention. The wife of Franco Caraballo, a 26-year-old, told Reuters, I've never seen him without hair, so I haven't recognized him in the photos, adding, I just suspect he's there because of the tattoos that he has, and right now any Venezuelan man with tattoos is assumed to be a gang member. Nobody can tell me that that might not be true. Not one person in here can say to me, Shy, I guarantee you everybody in that prison is a gang member. You can't do it. Because you know what the government told you. If the government snatched up, it could have been you. If they snatched up your kid, threw your kid in there, you'd be singing a different song. I want to talk about Jay. I'm saying people in general. You'd be singing a different song about this immigration shit if your kid just happened to get swooped up in it. You know? It's crazy talk. The Trump administration has denied the Venezuelans a chance to respond to the government's allegations of gang membership. But the most obvious through line in each case appears to be their tattoos. That's too easy, bro. You're gonna call that's like calling every person with tattoos a devil worshiper. Or calling every person with tattoos. You know, I just don't understand what's happening here. I mean, I understand what's happening, clearly. Y'all don't understand what's happening. As part of the White House effort to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, ICE officers received a document called the Alien Enemy Validation Guide, which provided a point system based on different categories of incriminating behavior or associations. If an immigrant in custody scored 6 points or higher, according to the rubric, he may be validated as a gang member. Tattoos, which fall under the symbolism category, constitute 4 points. Social media posts displaying gang symbols are 2 points. I'd probably take social media and give that 4 points over tattoos. Using open source material at the investigative arm of ICE compiled photos of tattoos considered suspicious. Crowns, stars, and the Michael Jordan Jumpman logo. No Jordans, period. Jersey Reyes Barrio, a 36-year-old soccer player and youth coach, fled Venezuela last year after marching in anti-government protests. His immigration file cites 2 grounds for suspicion. A gesture he made while posing for a photo that was posted to social media, and a tattoo of a crown on top of a soccer ball with the rosary and the word Dios. His lawyer, Lynette Tobin, worked with his family to secure documents from the police in Venezuela to show that he hadn't committed any crimes. They also tracked down Barrios' tattoo artist. He wanted a tattoo related to soccer. The artist said in a legal declaration, "We searched on the internet and the ball with the crown caught our attention to represent the king of soccer and he liked the idea." It's a shame that it seems to him like he sealed his fate by picking a flash tattoo off the internet. It's kind of fucking disgusting. All of these people from other countries dying to come to America, they got to be looking at America like that place is just as unjust as all these other fucking places. In the aftermath of the deportation, someone took photographs of Tobin's court filings and posted them on social media, where they soon went viral. Critics of Trump shared them as evidence that innocent people were being sent to rot in prison, I believe it, in El Salvador. While the president's defenders shared photos of Tobin deriding the affidavit she gave us as a hoax, I looked at my phone and I saw the calls and the emails. I was seriously horrified, she told me. Right-wing groups were singling her out for harassment, but she was more upset about her client, whose personal information was now being widely circulated. Andrys Antillano, a criminology professor at the Central University of Venezuela, has spent much of his career studying Tren de Aragua. This is the first time I've ever encountered any reference to the significance of tattoos. What? And hold on. Who is it? Somebody in the chat be saying, it might have been Primo, I don't know who it was, but somebody was saying that Tren de Aragua was something made up by the government, boom, boom, boom. If this guy's been studying it for a long career, then it's been in existence. Now they're probably just using it here, like the NWO, right? But think about it. This guy, a criminology professor, studies this gang and says this is the first time I've ever encountered any reference to the significance of tattoos. He called the thinking absurd and naive. Tattoos were typically associated with Central American gangs that built their identities around holding specific territory, he said. But it's been a long time since that sort of thing would apply to Tren de Aragua. In fact, The guidance ICE provided to its officers for identifying members of Tren de Aragua seems to be based on the operations of Salvadorian gang MS-13. See, so what they're doing is the United States government is giving ICE a playbook, right? The problem is these ICE people are chasing down Chicago gangs, but they gave them the LA gang playbook. It's two different politics, two different way of doing things, two different total structures, some similarities, but really not. Hit the like button if you have yet to do so. So they're looking at this Tren de Aragua situation, but they're using the MS-13 model, and that seems stupid. It's flags, graffiti, hand signs, and tattoos, all hallmarks of MS-13, but irrelevant to how Tren de Aragua functions. Rana Risquez, a Venezuelan journalist who reported extensively on criminal groups in Venezuela, published a definitive book on Tren de Aragua. The truth is that a tattoo identifying Tren de Aragua does not exist. Tren de Aragua does not use any tattoos as a form of gang identification. No Venezuelan gang does. In Risquez's view, tattoos are a completely unreliable indicator of someone's criminal proclivities. Rather, they reflect contemporary fashions and socio-economic class. Most young people in Latin America these days have tattoos, she said. Often they imitate those of celebrities. A watch in reference to the Argentinian soccer legend Lionel Messi, the phrase, Real hasta la muerte, in homage to the Puerto Rican singer Anuel, AA. Both of these symbols appear in the ICE documents. Risquez went on, people get a tattoo because it means something particular to them. Andrys tattoos have immediate significance to the people in Capacho. For 108 years, the town has held a special festival for the celebration of Three Kings Day, replete with elaborate theatrical acts, sets, costumes, and casts of dozens. The holiday is observed widely across Venezuela and indeed throughout much of the Christian world, but the production in Capacho is legendary in the country and has been awarded distinguished status as a national patrimonio or heritage. This work represents for the community of Capacho the greatest cultural expression of street theater. Jorge Cardenas, a leader of the foundation of Reyes Magos of Capacho, told me earlier this week, to speak of Capacho is to speak of Reyes Magos. Cardenas has known Andrys since he was a boy when Andrys participated in the festival's program for children. When we spoke, Cardenas described Andrys' contributions to local theater, including all of his roles in the festival itself, before leaving me a series of messages brimming with literary and religious detail. Andrys was one of the 13 main actors in the show, a makeup stylist for the others, and the costume designer for nearly 24 dancers. One of the principal symbols of Three Kings Day is a crown. Andrys is a great lover of the festival, and the two crowns on his wrist are a tribute to his passion for it, Cardenas said. During the past week, several of Andrys' friends, some in the U.S., others in Venezuela, urged me to watch footage of Andrys at the festival, which is on YouTube. There was something painfully desperate in their insistence, as if seeing images of Andrys for myself would help correct an otherwise stunning cultural misunderstanding. One morning, a childhood friend of Andrys named Alejandro, who currently lives in the state of Georgia, where he works as a food delivery man, damn boy, y'all be doxing motherfuckers, spoke to me during his shift. Alejandro came to the U.S. at the end of 2023, shortly after the unaliving of his father, or the termination of his father, or the expiration of his father, who owned a bus company. He had spent a few years in Venezuela as a taxi driver, but eventually abandoned the job because he had to pay too much of his meager wages to local criminal groups as protection money, a tax known as a vacuna, or vaccine. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was now living in a country where he could be accused of gangsterism. They're taking everyone now, he told me. It doesn't matter if you have papers or not. He lives in an apartment with his brother-in-law and two others from Capacho. One of them, in a nod to their hometown, also has a tattoo of a crown. Boy, you better go cut that shit out. Real talk. You better go put a hot spoon to that. Get that off of you. All right, because these fools ain't going. They taking everything moving that got a crown on it. Judge Boasberg called the hearing on March 17th to determine whether the Trump administration had deliberately flouted his earlier order. Of course they did. If so, it meant that the White House was choosing to ignore the Constitution's foundational system of checks and balances. Unchecked, unbalanced. I've been told y'all. Checks and balances out the window. And challenging the judiciary to do something about it. By then, the Justice Department had unsuccessfully asked the higher court to remove Boasberg from the case. Get him fired. They want to put him in the fucking bathroom. Put him in the fucking bedroom, Mike. That's what they own. They want to put him in the bathroom. In the courtroom, Boasberg explained to administration's lawyers that he wanted to perform fact-finding. When did the planes leave for El Salvador? How many people were on each one? When were the migrants transferred into the custody of Salvadoran authorities? I'm not at liberty to disclose anything about any flights, one of the administration's lawyers said. Trump's legal team then struggled to explain why they couldn't say more. If you tell me it's classified, then we will go down to a classified facility in this building, and you can give me that information then, Boasberg said. Boasberg ain't playing. Boasberg upset. Oh, you guys just flipped me off and sent me to go get my fucking shine box?
Go home and get your fucking shine box.
That ain't happening. He basically told him, we can take this shit outside. Boasberg said, if what you're saying is that it's classified and you can't tell me, then you're going to need to make a good showing as to why that is. The government lawyer said that he could consult with the clients on that, but we don't believe it's necessary, Jalert told the judge. There's been a lot of talk over the last 7 weeks about constitutional crisis. People are throwing that term around. I think we're getting very close to it. Bruh. Within a day, Trump began attacking Boasberg on Truth Social. This radical left lunatic of a judge, a troublemaker and agitator. No, this radical left lunatic. Nah, I got a bad. It's not a good Trump. This radical left lunatic of a judge, a troublemaker and agitator, who was sadly appointed by Barack Hussein Obama. He got throw the Hussein in there. This is just PR, man. It's public relations and fuckery, man. These are WWE promos that they throw on each other. Was not elected president, he wrote. I'm just doing what voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I'm forced to appear before, should be impeached. In response to the president, Chief Justice John Roberts issued a rare rebuke saying for more than 2 centuries it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. Soon, Attorney General Pam Bondi's name began to appear on increasingly aggressive series of filings. One of them, called the judge's request for information, a picayune dispute over the micromanagement of immaterial fact-finding. The administration claims that it did not violate the judge's order because 2 of the 3 deportation flights had already left the United States when Boasberg made his ruling. According to federal officials, the Venezuelans on the 3rd plane weren't removed solely on the basis of the Aliens Enemies Act. But that assertion raises another question. If they were deported under regular immigration procedures, why would they be sent to El Salvador without prior warning? They're just doing shit. Put them on a plane. Drop them off. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out later. We'll talk to Boasberg. We'll get him figured out. Early last week, the Justice Department invoked the state secrets privilege, claiming that sharing even minimal details about the deportation flights would pose reasonable danger to national security and foreign affairs. Gallant was the lead litigator in some of the highest profile lawsuits of Trump's first term, including successful challenges to the initial Muslim ban and the administration's family separation policy. He pointed out that the last time Roberts rebuked the president was in 2018 when, in another case brought by Gallant in the ACLU, a federal judge blocked a Trump proclamation ending asylum at the border. Trump lambasted him as an Obama judge. The echoes were unmistakable, yet they also reinforced the fact that the administration has only become more combative since Trump's first term. They're much more intent on picking a fight with the federal judiciary, Jalert told me. It appears to me that they think that's a winning political issue for them. He continued, the stridency of their position is what's catching me, the unwillingness to give at all. What also seems clear is that the DOJ lawyers do not have authorization to make any concessions in court. AKA, just show up in court. You ain't got shit to say. And they don't get to talk to me, so don't tell them shit. On March 26th, federal appeals court upheld Boasberg's temporary restraining order. One of the judges, Patricia Millett, had expressed disbelief that Venezuelans were being sent to El Salvador without any notice or opportunity to mount a legal defense. Nazis got better. I'm saying it like that because I don't know if I could say it the other way, but Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemies Act, she said. The Justice Department filed an emergency petition before the Supreme Court. In the meantime, Trump's Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, who has publicly called undocumented immigrants dirtbags, visited the Salvadoran facility. Standing in front of a cell crammed with prisoners who appeared to be Salvadorans, covered in MS-13 tattoos, she said, this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people. Why are there people in there that didn't commit a crime against the American people? They're already going against what they say. Why? Because they can't get on the same page. Why? Because this is thrown together with scotch tape and paper mache. That's why. It's a first draft. Andrys' American lawyers are caught in something of a paradox. They're vocal about sharing the details of his disappearance, because if he fades from the news, his situation may grow even more dire. Yet Andrys is also an asylum seeker. Disclosing the full identity of someone fleeing persecution is inherently risky. One evening, while I was talking with one of his lawyers, or one of his attorneys, Lindsay, good luck with that, the president of the Immigrant Defenders Law Center, CBS News, published a full list of the 238 Venezuelans deported to El Salvador. I had spent nights looking at his Instagram pictures thinking, how can something like this happen to him? She told me. But at the same time, I felt like we couldn't share that information. When the list was published, it was inevitable that those pictures would be out there. She and her colleagues had debated whether disclosing that Andrys was gay would make him a target inside the Salvadoran prison. They decided it was pointless to try to hide it, and that maybe it would make the public more sympathetic to his case. Ordinarily, this would be a conversation they could have had with Andrys. Under the circumstances, all they could do was discuss it with his mother. She told him, do exactly everything you can to get him out of there. Shit. On March 21st, Times published a report by Philip Holsinger, an American photojournalist who gained access to the Salvadorian prison when the Venezuelans first arrived. In the story, he describes someone roughly resembling Andrys. One young man sobbed when a guard pushed him to the floor, Holsinger wrote. He said, I am not a gang member. I'm gay. I'm a barber. The description went on. He began to whimper, folding his hands in prayer. He was slapped. The man asked for his mother, then buried his face in his chained hands and cried as he was slapped again. What are you doing to people? What are you doing to people? People that don't deserve it, people that committed no crimes, people that got a crown for his mama and his daddy. Like, what are we talking about here? On social media, people connected this account with the photos that the attorney had shared of Andrys. The attorney told me that it seemed unlikely Andrys would have described himself as a barber. But was it possible, in addition to a gay makeup artist, the Trump administration had just deported a gay hairdresser? Wait, what? He's just a makeup artist? He's not a barber? What are we talking about here? The attorney told me that it seemed unlikely Andrys would have described himself as a barber. But was it possible that in addition to a gay makeup artist, the Trump administration had just deported a gay hairdresser? One user on X posted a photo of Andrys alongside a photo by Holsinger of a Venezuelan prisoner getting his head shaved. The first photo is of a young Venezuelan named Andrys, a 23-year-old gay makeup artist, the person wrote. Andrys is 31. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security quoted the post and responded, no DHS intelligent assessments go well beyond just gang affiliate tattoos. This man's social media indicates he is a member of Tren de Aragua. Prove it. You didn't prove it. You didn't show nobody. Why? Because there's no due process. What are we talking about? The residents of Capacho have been holding regular vigils for Andrys, and they've recorded videos of spirited pleas to release him. Caldenas, the head of the Three Kings Festival, begged Bukiak directly, calling Andrys a great talent of our town. And the gatherings, many people turned out wearing costumes from the festival. Andrys' full name is ubiquitous in the Spanish language coverage. Online, there are already dozens of photos, not just of him, but of his old neighbors and friends, filling the streets before the local church. In one of them, Andrys' mother and father are standing next to three men in festival garb, holding signs of conscience, justice, and liberty. On each of their heads is a crown. Disgusting. If you defend that, say, oh, well, people just try to get themselves out of stuff. I'm hearing multiple cases in the first batch of people that y'all took. Multiple cases of y'all just snatching somebody off the street that had nothing to do with none of the shit that should have them in that prison. They shouldn't be in the Cook County jail. They shouldn't be in the LA County jail. They should have been sent to wherever you wanted to send them as far as the deportation, send them back to their country. Done deal. But to put them in a prison and you're not telling nobody why, and we're getting reports that you got the wrong guy, unacceptable. Fuck you. Remember the conversation we had where I said even one wrong person was way too many? Well, guess what? They did it. They did it just like that. One wrong person. Mike got two wrong persons. Mike got three. No, for sure there's one. For sure. Might not be none of the ones we talked about, but there's no way that there's not one. But I think there's multiple on the first trip. First three planes. If no criminal record, no Con Air flight. What are we doing? Now you know how El Mayo felt. I thought about that. I said, was El Mayo the inspiration for just putting people on a plane against everybody's orders and just crossing them over? Having tattoos and being an immigrant is a modern version of Hitler wanting blonde hair and blue eyes. Trump may want people to look certain. He want everybody to look like his goofy ass time traveling son. Robert said, get pulled over and you're just a little too brown with a couple of shitty tattoos. El Salvador for you, bro. What? That shit's crazy. Nasty, nasty work by the United States government. Now I want to show you some pictures. I'm not going to read this shit. I'm going to show y'all some pictures, though. I'm pretty sure, man, just for a photo op, they said throw whatever brownies you can in the back of that plane. Let's get them out of here. Let's get this photo op. Get the best photographers over there with the biggest 18K cameras. Do we have to put up a poll? Do you guys think that this guy is a criminal or a makeup artist? I don't know if we need a poll. Now, these are pictures of him. This crown tattoo tradition stems from the Three Kings Epiphany commemorations. Right? This is him. Okay? This seems to have his name on the wristband. Right? This says Dad with a 5-point crown on top. This says Mom, I believe. Yeah, Mom with a heart in the middle and an imperial crown on the top. This is his snake band that he got on the forearm. I believe this is up on his bicep too. Manicured up, skinny, tenderfoot. He don't look like a gang member to me, right? He don't look like he belong in a Salvadoran super duper max prison. I don't understand what they doing. So, you ain't got nothing else, clean it, hot spoon, burn it, clean it, and get it off of you, because the United States government is being extremely reckless. I guess this is him too. Right? In these festivals. This guy doesn't look like a guy that and again, not that there's a look, right? Because we go through this with the twins where people say, oh, they don't look like cartel guys. It looks like they're dropping the ball and they're just taking anybody, and this is dangerous. And guess what? They don't have to acknowledge it if they don't want to. Why? Because everybody's just going to forget about it and we're going to move on to the next tragedy. All right? We was talking about the whole Big Meat situation, what blew that out the water, the Big U situation, and so on and so forth. And the news day changes while this man cries in the corner, being tortured for the rest of his life, physically manipulated. You know, whether you think there's something funny in that or that's what he wants, it is nah, man. He don't belong there. Anybody else, the dude that if they didn't have no criminal records and they were just supposed to be deported, I don't understand what they're doing in that jail. I don't get it. Shia, do you think females will ever set foot on CECOT since a lot of them are fully tatted now these days? No, pretty soon it's going to be for anything, bro. They're going to give you less and less reason why they're going to throw your ass in that CECOT. They're going to give you every reason why they're going to throw you in that CECOT. They're out of pocket. They just, numbers, throw them in there. No due process. Fuck that judge. No U-turns in the sky. Drop them off. Oh, man, we made a mistake. Yeah, that was an error. Can you get them back? No. We're not going to keep admitting that we made this mistake over and over and over and over again. Why? Because then they're going to shut down our operation. Well, maybe that operation should be shut the fuck down. Maybe you jumped the gun. That's like saying, oh, termination, unaliving, extermination sentence for all rug dealers. Come on, are you stupid? Huh? Are you stupid? If serial unalivers are sitting on death row for how many 30, 40 years? Huh? If people who take other people's lives and it's not a self-defense situation, if they don't get out, you going to take a rug dealer? Come on, man. You're just going to throw these laws into place and just start snatching people and throwing them in this prison? Remember, they're building more. You don't build something unless you're going to fill that shit up. Huh? I got tattoos. At what point do my tattoos get me thrown in there? At what point does my opinion get me thrown in there? Oh, willy-nilly. No due process. That operation should be called the flight of no return. Bruh, it's the end. You fall into a bottomless pit. They're going to expand it. They're not only going to expand it, but they're going to expand it to other countries. They're going to expand it to other countries. They're going to expand it to other jungles. It's crazy. So all of that, this is good, and we're being soft on the bad guy shit. Miss me with that shit. I don't hear motherfuckers defending that shit now. Fuck out of here. It's dirty. It's filthy. You got little soft-ass, ass Andrys getting smacked the fuck up in a Salvadoran prison. Don't even know why the fuck he's there. Just trying to have, asylum to the U.S. Nope.